Welcome to another episode of Cyber Bites, the podcast, coming to you live from Black Hat 2025 in Las Vegas. I'm about to have the privilege of sitting down with Barmak Meftah, one of the co-founders and general partners of Ballistic Ventures, an early-stage cybersecurity venture firm. Let's dive in.
All right, and we're on. Introducing Barmak Meftah, the co-founder and general partner at Ballistic Ventures. How are you, mate?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Did you arrive in this morning, yesterday?
2 days ago. Two days ago. This is my 23rd Black Hat, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe 22nd. Started in 2003, 22nd.
Changed a lot since the first one, or?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, the size obviously is exponentially bigger.
Yeah.
Just the number of cyber companies are exponentially bigger.
Yeah. Even in comparison to last year, like the amount of people here today just seems like it's substantially more. So yeah, I can only imagine how it's been over the last 23 years.
Yeah, it's a great show. I enjoy it partly because the audience are technologists primarily, and so you talk to people that are actually in the position of buying tech, evaluating tech, et cetera. So from an investment perspective, we get informed by them a ton, which is great.
Yeah, great. Well, Barmak, we'll dive in, and I'd love to give the audience a bit of an idea about who you are and how you got into the industry.
Yeah, so let's see. I've been in enterprise software since I remember myself. Got an undergrad and grad degree in computer science. Joined Wells Fargo Bank actually back in 1993, and I remember those were the early days of the World Wide Web, and the web browser was just becoming a thing. And I remember at the time, the guy who ran a good part of the IT group at Wells Fargo asked me to join them. And my first project was to take the bank online. So we actually became one of the first financial institutions, if not the first financial institution, to go online. You could actually see your account statements. And that was a really big deal. So that was a 2.5-year run. Was very fortunate to join Oracle during kind of the days where they were competing with Informix and Illustra and Sybase and Ingress. And so learned a lot about enterprise software product strategy, development, sales, et cetera. I was there for 7 years. And then got to meet the folks at Kleiner Perkins, specifically Ted Schlein, who's now my founding partner. And my third founding partner, Roger Thornton, the two of them were trying to build an application security company. And the idea behind it was, why can't software be built with security built into the fabric of the software? So instead of building software insecurely, then thinking about security ex post facto, how do we enable the engineers to be able to build software, in a secure way? I got very interested in that company, and we incubated Fortify Software. It was kind of the first of its kind static analysis company. We started in Kleiner Perkins, sold it to HP in 2010. And then took a company called AlienVault, which was a company that was headquartered in Spain, had moved the headquarters to the US, took that company over, took threat detection down market into the SME segment. A very successful company, about 13,000 customers, 600 MSSPs, and then sold that to AT&T, ran cyber for AT&T, and then stepped down in 2020. And I met with Roger and Ted, the three of us, and we decided to start our fund 3.5 years ago, and we have two other founding partners.
Yeah, is one of those Jake Seed?
Yeah, so Jake Seid is one of the founding partners. Kevin Mandia, who is the founder of Mandiant, is our other founding partner. Myself, Roger Thornton, Ted Schlein. And then we have two venture partners, Phil Venables. Phil Venables, longtime Goldman Sachs CISO, most recently Google Cloud CISO. He joined us about 2 months ago. And then Nicole Prolroth, which you probably know, being in the business. So
pretty impressive career, my man. I was just curious, what's sort of one really memorable moment for you over that long career? What really stands out when I ask that?
Other than the fun times we had here in Vegas, which probably shouldn't be on record. Let's see. So much. I have to say, Fortify was a very iconic company, and I really loved everything about Fortify. I loved the team. I loved the idea that we had. I mean, you sort of see the area of software composition analysis, static analysis today with companies like SemGrep and Sneak or what have you. But that was kind of an area that we started 22 years ago. And so, if I had to point to, I guess, the best experience that I had was the experience starting Fortify with Ted, Roger, and the team, and just we were young, we're optimistic. It was just an awesome company.
You're still young now, mate.
Yeah.
You're still young now.
Feel young.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Well, it's amazing that you've continued on now, actually still working with them. So do you mind just giving the audience a bit of an idea about Ballistic Ventures and who you guys are?
Yeah, definitely. So we are an early stage cybersecurity focused company. When we talk about cybersecurity, we always talk about cyber and cyber adjacent. And by that, we mean anything that touches identity, privacy, compliance will fall within, essentially our investable area. We like to think of ourselves from a stage perspective as the first big institutional money into a company. That sometimes takes the form of a seed investment. So as opposed to kind of the old spray and pray seed investments, we're very concentrated, highly selective. These seed rounds for us typically are $6 to $10 million, $6 to $11 million rounds. And then Series A's probably comprise about 40% of what we invest in. And these are typically, not always, but typically companies that have reached product market fit. They have the first early customers, typically, not always, 1 to 2 million, 1 to 3 million of annual recurring revenue. And they're essentially looking for the first institutional money to help grow the go-to-market.
Yep.
And then we also do this thing which is fairly unique to our fund called the incubations, which is, once or twice per fund, maybe fund 2 will become 3, we will start the company from whole cloth. So if we see an investable area, especially in a new threat vector, and we don't find an investment opportunity that we like, we'll actually start the company within the fund. And that takes typically the form of one of us becoming an acting CEO,
right.
One of us becomes the acting CTO, we ink the company, we fund it, we get the company off the ground, and then hire the operating team around it. And so we've done 2 in Fund 1. We're very happy with both, and we aspire to do 2 or 3 per fund in Fund 2.
Am I right in saying, was you part of the NOMA? Was you part of that?
So NOMA was not an incubation. Jake, my partner, is the lead in NOMA, and we led the Series A round for that not too long ago, and they had a huge round of funding about 2 weeks ago that they announced. We're really happy with the team there, obviously with what they've done.
Yeah, that was an enormous round, 100 million Series A.
Series B.
Series B. What space are they in?
NOMA is in the data security space.
Okay.
So the idea is data governs everything. And so we have a company, Concentric AI, which is another fast-growing company that focuses on data security posture management. And now they acquired 2 companies and got themselves into DLP. NOMA focuses on the new threat vector has become data, so it's really easy to infect data. And that data gets fed into AI inference algorithms. In the old days, not old days, still kind of ML operations were done on data. Data feeds into traditional apps. And so ensuring data integrity, data being clean, not tampered with is really, really important. And so a big part of what they do is ensure the integrity, cleanliness of the data. And of course, you can imagine has huge ramifications in the world of AI.
Yeah. And how many companies have you got in the portfolio now?
So Fund 1 ended up being about 18 companies.
Oh, okay.
One of them got acquired. Actually, 2 companies got acquired. Talon Cyber was acquired by Palo Alto. We're really happy with our exit. And it was a brand new space, obviously, the enterprise web browser. One of our other companies got acquired by one of our other companies in Fund 1. And so we have active 16 companies in Fund 1. Fund 2 we raised last July. Fund 1 was 300 million, Fund 2 was 360. I anticipate keeping these funds, no more than 400 probably at most. And Fund 2, we're probably about a third invested out of Fund 2. So we've done about 6 or 7 investments there.
Great.
So again, kind of the strategy being highly selective, very concentrated, and almost always we become the lead of the round and take a seat on the board and really help the entrepreneur.
Yeah, that what you said earlier explains what I read on your website as well about not just being like a capital provider, we're a company builder, which makes a lot of sense. What makes an investable company when you're looking at companies? What makes an investable?
So early stage venture capital is more of an art than a science. There's not that much financial data to crunch. So it's not like you can look at past history of the company and sort of infer how the company is going to do. So it really boils down to, typically 4 risks: team risk, market risk, technology risk, and capital risk. And we try to analyze companies based on those 4 dimensions as best you can. And I say as best you can, again, because you don't have that much data behind you to go through. And so it's more of pattern matching. The more you see, the more you feel if this is investable or not. Typically, what we like, so teams are everything. And I think you'll hear that from every venture capital firm, which is in the early stages, teams are everything. There's an old saying that an A-grade team will make a C-grade opportunity C-grade. A C-grade team will take an A-grade opportunity and make it an A-grade. So a really good team is obviously invaluable. Market is incredibly important. And that sort of splits into 2 parts. The TAM size, which is how much headroom do you have to grow in that market, is really important. But market timing is also really important. So especially in cybersecurity, if you're too early for the market, you spend a lot of venture capital dollars trying to educate the market. And you might run out of venture capital dollars, and people that come behind you enjoy the fruits of your labor. Yeah. And if you're too late in the market, you have to contend with a lot of incumbents. And so you have to find these markets that are either going through their second or third order inflection. You've had a market category and new tech is forced the obsolescence of the old security control, or you have to look for new threat vectors that the adversary is inventing, and you have to be really careful because, again, those threat vectors might sound pretty exotic, but if the CISO isn't thinking about that as an immediate need, then that might be too early for its market timing. So we look for those 2 primarily. We look for capital risk a little bit in that we don't want to be the only institutional fund that carries the bag. And of course, we want to be the only in the early stages, but we look for areas that other VCs and investors find investable. And so that's also pretty important to us. And the rest really becomes checking with our other partners to see how they see it, see the market, and also checking with our CISOs. So we have a vast network ecosystem of CISOs that we check these things with to see if it's top 3, top 4 for them, if they agree with the investment strategy. If all those are true, we go into it. There are themes we like, and those themes change every 2 to 3 years. So we typically go into pitch meetings thematically, as opposed to trying to wait for the entrepreneur to pitch.
Interesting. Yeah, I spoke to somebody yesterday and they was explaining around is the product a vitamin or is it a painkiller?
Right.
And they were really wanting painkillers rather than the vitamins at this point, which was also quite an interesting discussion. Anyways, regarding the space, obviously the cyber landscape's vast. We've got AppSec data, GRC, we've obviously got AI out there everywhere right now. What space are you most interested in at the moment? Where have you been looking at a lot of your time?
Yeah, data security, as you indicated, is very, very interesting to us. Again, sort of if you look at data security posture management, DLP, it's going through a second order inflection. I think AI is allowing us now to identify, classify, govern unstructured, structured data with higher fidelity and accuracy. So we like that business. App security is still going on after 22 years. 22 years ago, Fortify was one of the first ones. You'd be shocked. You'd think the problem would be at least 90% solved by now. But developers still need help to identify security weaknesses. App security posture management is interesting, which is how do you triage and classify vulns and get it fixed automatically. Obviously, the intersection of AI and cyber is very interesting. The way we think about AI and cyber is, we put it into 3 main buckets. There's an area of AI attacking you. So if you look at kind of the emergence of deep fakes, zero-day exploits are a lot more effective to create these days. Phishing is a lot more effective because you can use Gen AI and it's a lot more in context. And so the area of AI attacking you is interesting. The area of AI security and risk management, one of our incubations in Fund 1, Witness AI is doing phenomenally well. We incubated the company. And this is more in the area of employees are going to use external LLMs, and the CISO just doesn't have any observability around what they're doing, and safety guardrails to put in place so you can enable the use of AI, but do it within the safety framework of an enterprise, so it doesn't go too far left, too far right, with employees doing things they shouldn't be doing with these LLMs. And then the third category is the application of AI to make things more efficient, more automated. And so in the third category, we see a lot of companies. And there you have to pay attention to ensuring that you're not funding a feature company, but a company that has an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and you can sort of grow along with it. So those three areas of AI and cyber are pretty interesting. I'd say agentic AI. These agents are going to take over enterprises here pretty soon, and how do you govern, manage, look at runtime behavior for these agents is going to be very interesting. Trying to think, there's kind of this area of shadow everything, shadow IT, shadow AI, which is you think the CIO or the CISO has their arms around all the assets that they have, but you'd be shocked to find out that 80-90% are not in their control because employees are subscribing to SaaS apps all over the place, and of course that introduces a huge amount of risk to the enterprise. And so that area is also pretty interesting.
I think you've not been on the floor yet, but the conference floor is full with SOC AI vendors.
We've looked at no less, I'm not exaggerating, probably 30, 35 of those. And it's interesting, the problem we have with SOC AI is you have the analytics vendors. So right now, Google SecOps, Microsoft Sentinel are dominating the market. You obviously have the old analytics vendors. ArcSight was the first SIM vendor. Then you have the second gen sort of SIM and SOAR vendors, or what have you. And so the problem is these incumbents aren't necessarily not innovating. So if you own the analytics stack, you're going to start to make it more efficient by using AI so that you remove the SOC analyst. And so, we're looking at companies that have, again, staying power that just don't become the automation layer on top of the analytics stack because, the half-life is going to be pretty short. So.
Yeah. And then the other one is AI pen testing keeps coming up as well.
Yeah, that's an area of interest. Yeah, so I would say I put it into two buckets: pen testing and red teaming. And pen testing is primarily done for compliance and regulatory purposes. Red teaming is done if it's done effectively, is to identify security issues. And so pen testing, you've had the incumbents, Qualys, Tenable, Rapid7 for a long period of time. And so we think that space might be due for an inflection. And then the use of AI to make red teamers more effective and red teaming AI systems is also an area of interest.
Yeah.
So,
how exciting is it having Phil on board?
Phil is awesome. Yeah, Phil. He's been such a supporter of all of us for the past 25 years, 24 years. He was one of the early adopters of our first company, Fortify. He's sort of been an advisor to all of us. And we work with a lot of CISOs and we love all of them. But Phil was really one of the original chief risk, chief trust, and chief information security officers. And so his career at Goldman is incredible. And then obviously the last 4.5 years, him being at Google Cloud has been great. So his insights when we analyze a deal is just amazing. And he's such an awesome, he's just awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future. What's the plans for Ballistic and where are we taking it?
Our aspiration and dream when we first put the fund together was to really earn the right to hopefully be kind of the preeminent venture capital brand for an entrepreneur that aspires to start a company and get their first round of funding. And so you indicated this 10 minutes ago, and we really pride ourselves for being operators for operators. If you look at our team, all of us have had deep entrepreneurial operating backgrounds, founded companies, started companies. And I've always believed that to really advise an entrepreneur to get a company off the ground, there's no academic book that you turn into chapter 3 and say, this is how. So, unless you've walked in their shoes, you've experienced the highs and the lows that it's indescribable. And you've seen product strategies and go-to-market models that work, and each ICP or market segment has its own little ways that you sell into. It's really hard to advise an entrepreneur if you haven't done it on your own. And so that first kind of 5 to 10 million revenue is critical. But once you find product market fit, once you find kind of the early ICP and how you sell into it, it gets a lot easier. We love doing the hard parts with the entrepreneurs. And so our hope is that our brand sort of becomes that.
Yeah. Do you find yourself giving the same advice to the founders, so some of the early founders? Do they face the same challenges? Or?
that we did when we founded companies, they're all come in different forms. I mean, just give you some ideas. I just led a round for Zip Security, which their aspiration is to be the automated platform that essentially provides best-of-breed security solutions like CrowdStrike and Okta to the SMB and the SME market. So, that market has been, for every $1 tool spend, there's been $5 spent with services and MSSPs. We want to use automation to really make it a lot more efficient so these SMB companies can still have access to the best-of-breed solutions big enterprises have, but make how you operationalize these tools super easy for them. So that go-to-market model is inbound, high volume, velocity. We have a company, Reach Security, that is in the security efficacy hygiene space. You have too many security controls. Those security controls aren't configured appropriately often. Security gaps are exposed. And that's a new area. And so for that is more evangelical, high touch, outbound. And so the advice I give the entrepreneurs is really in the context of the type of business that they want to run, as opposed to one size fits all, you do it over and over again, which obviously doesn't work.
Barmak, I feel like we could talk all day, brother. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.